Hey guys, what is up? Kid here of Burn1 with the Shadowverse Evolved channel, bringing you another deck profile for Omens Eternal. The set is just now releasing, and we're going to be talking about Disdain PDK. This is a really fun deck. I really like the whole PDK package along with Disdain. I think it works very well together. So this is the most exciting dragon deck I've been waiting to play in quite a while. So let's just get right into the deck profile. All right, so here is the deck itself. We'll just jump right into it. So first off, we have Disciple of Disdain. If you've seen our set review, we know for a fact that this card is a huge playmaker at getting huge advantages from all the Omen stuff, because a lot of the dragon things involve you hurting your own followers to gain some type of advantage. So this is the type of card that you don't necessarily want to run out early, though you can and bring it back later with Galmu through her effect. But the thing is, a lot of times you don't want to swing with this card or have it get removed. You want to at least get one of the activations off before it gets removed. And then anytime your opponent lets this just sit on board for multiple turns, you're probably going to slowly snowball the game out of control for them, because you're going to get so much advantage from just using this activated effect over and over again on key cards. This is definitely a huge playmaker that needs to be answered whenever it does come down. So you know, dragon players don't run away with the game too easily. Blazing Breath here, I mean, what's there to say? If you've been playing since the beginning, we all know for a fact Blazing Breath is the GOAT when it comes to one cost removal spells. That's the best version of Snipe out there, and unfortunately it's part of Dragon's toolkit. So obviously we're playing this at 3, and I also think this meta right now is going to be pretty important at having 1-drop answers for a lot of the 1 and 2 drops in the game currently, and there are other like 3 drops that have 2 health we want to remove. So having more ways to remove them is always important. Next, Disdainful Rendering. This is another key playmaker for the deck. It's really crazy removal. Not only do you get to remove something and deal 3 damage for only 1 play point, but you deal 1 damage to your own follower, which most of the time will activate some kind of other effect, either drawing you a card or dealing damage to your opponent for taking damage, things like that, because we're in the Omen Disdain package and all that stuff. Only downside for this card is when you want to use it as removal, you do have to have a body on board. Luckily, a lot of our followers are very cheap, and we should generally have a decent amount of bodies on the board to be able to use this effect most of the time, especially since it's only during your main phase that you can play this. Aqua Nereid, it's a card I keep going back to. I love this card with PDK. I think it's one of like the most insane value cards for PDK, because once you develop a PDK on the board, you get 2 triggers of PDK, and once you hit Overflow, it's essentially 4 storm damage for 2 play points. Because you play this, you get the 2 bodies, they trigger PDK twice, meaning that you're going to deal 4 damage to the board somewhere that you want, split up into increments of 2, and then 1 damage each time to your opponent, plus the fact that the Megala Orca gains storm, making this essentially 2 play points into 4 storm damage, which is obnoxiously powerful. Occasionally too, this 0/1 ward is annoying enough that your opponent can't really do will have to run something into it or use removal for it to be able to get towards you directly. Having a 0/1 ward randomly is pretty strong occasionally, so it never feels too bad. Dragon Summoner, another key important piece of this deck. It lets us refill hand a little bit, but also helps us dig for PDK when we don't have one, because even though we're a part of the whole Disdain package, which is very strong, having a PDK developed on the board for this deck is not only important, but it can help you just run away with the game much easier. PDK helps you control the board, it deals damage to your opponent, so we want to find one as soon as possible and develop one onto the board as soon as possible. This is one of the key ways we find those extra cards, or if we're even looking for a Forte off the top or a Galmu, for example. We only play 2 of the Evo because we do need some space for the other cards that are very powerful. I've been considering cutting this down from a 3/2 line to a 2/2 line, but I haven't played the deck enough just yet to make those type of decisions to make sure it feels good. But right now, the 3/2 line seems just solid overall, so we see it enough so I can experience it enough to make my decision later on if I need to cut this to a 2/2 line and make room for something else. Servant of Disdain, a huge powerful 2-drop. You want to usually play this in Overflow or play one out early, because it's still like a vanilla statted follower, and get it into the cemetery soon, because Galmu, when she does evolve, you can pull out a 2 cost or lower Omen card and use it. And usually you'll be wanting to take this card out because not only does it, when it comes into play, it helps you build up a board, but it also hits itself plus another follower on the board, usually giving you 2 triggers of whatever Disdain thing you want to happen, which is really, really powerful. Dragon Oracle is always a card I go back and forth on. It's obviously a very, very powerful card, but sometimes I feel like you don't really need it in like these PDK decks because you have such a low curve. But at the end of the day, being able to play Forte a turn earlier or Galmu and Evo her earlier is honestly pretty important for the deck overall. There's some consideration of playing like some number of Phoenixes in this deck too, which is like even just 1 or 2, so we can get that into the grave earlier and then bring it back whenever we use Dragon Oracle or some of our removal spells. That's pretty good as well. But yeah, so right now we're on 3 Dragon Oracles. I could see a world where this gets cut, but you know, honestly, it probably will never get cut because it's too powerful of a card. Total Domination. This is another key piece, like playmaker for the deck. You select a follower in your field, you deal 2 damage, and then deal 2 damage to each enemy follower in the field. So this is kind of our anti-early aggro against all those aggro decks, essentially, that we might run into, any like Hero Sword and stuff like that. And then later in the game, once we get Galmu online, this will either, if it's already in the grave, we get a play it for free from Galmu, or we can just play it from hand, and then it's kind of like we play a Jeanne d'Arc essentially, and deal 4 damage to our enemy's board while also triggering our own Disdain effects. It's a really, really powerful card, and it really shores up like issues when you have like these little wide boards that aggro decks love to build. Apostle of Disdain. This is another super, super powerful card in the deck. Another reason that I'm really excited to be playing this deck. It gains Storm when it takes damage as well as +1 attack, which is really, really good during your turn, that is. And then Evo's for 1, and the Evo side is what blows this card out of the way. So on Evo, you discard a card, then you look at the top 5 cards of your deck, and then from among them you reveal up to 2 Omen cards and add them to your hand. Put the remaining cards on the bottom of your deck in any order, and it still has the Storm effect, so it's a 3/5. You find some Omen cards, you get to refill your hand a bit, then you can like ping this, pushing it up to 4 damage, and then run it in with some Storm, and then we have a 4/4 Storm. It's insane. This card is just so good. It even works super well in Discard Dragon, so I'm sure people will be playing this in Discard Dragon as well, along with some of the Disdain package. And we play a 3/2 line because we want to see it as soon as possible, usually, because we love to abuse this card, and then Evo it as soon as possible. Draconeer Knuckle Dragon. This is just the better version of Dragon Warrior, period. It essentially potentially makes a 4/5 on your board if you give itself the Draconic Weapon token effect. Otherwise, we usually are easily able to put bodies on the board, so we can use the token itself to give something else armored. So when we go into the Evo form, instead of dealing 2 damage, we can deal the 4 damage when we need it, which is really big. A lot of times too, I do like making the play when I don't need to use the token on something else to activate 4 damage. I like giving it to Draconeer Knuckle Dragon itself, so it becomes a 4/5, and then it can trade with other 3-cost Evos, because a lot of 3-cost Evos are 4/4s. You can swing in, remove it, and it lives with at 4/1, and then a lot of times too, you can ping something else off for 2 damage, which is pretty big. Finally, one of the key pieces of the deck, PDK here, Prime Dragon Keeper. If you haven't been playing with this card already, you should try it out this set for sure, especially in this type of package. This card is insanely powerful, and I have a feeling that like from what I saw last set, I feel like a lot of people kind of slept on this card a little bit, but this card is insane. Whenever another dragon follower that costs 3 play points or less is put into your field, select an enemy follower on the field and deal 2 damage to it and deal 1 damage to its leader. It's insane what kind of board control you can get whenever you start playing a bunch of cheap cost followers and slowly ping off the opponent's board while also pinging their face. It's insanely powerful. And if Overflow is active for you, this follower becomes a 2/6 and gains Intimidate, meaning that it can start swinging in and doesn't have to worry about your opponent swinging at it to remove it. Once it gets the Intimidate, it's obnoxiously annoying to remove because it usually is at a 2/6 or even 2/7 if you gave it the token from Draconeer Knuckle Dragon. It's a quite annoying card. Serpent Wrath, we play 2 of. It does once we hit Overflow, it does let us draw a card, but having a 5 damage spell is pretty important. I kind of wish I could play this as a 3 of. This is another reason I was thinking of cutting Dragon Summoner down to 2 and just playing the 2/2 line. But right now, I've been liking Dragon Summoner so far, and honestly, a lot of the time if we can set up the PDK, then this card doesn't seem as important in that case because we can start playing a lot of small cheap followers to the board to remove a lot of things. Still a pretty important card. If someone high rolls like a 5/5 Ancient Elf on 2, it's good to have some type of answer. We're playing Dragon, we're playing Dark Dragoon Forte, we play 2 of the Evo. I mean, what's to be expected? It has Storm and Aura, 7/3. Like, who doesn't want that? If every craft had their own Dark Dragoon Forte, all of us would be playing it because the card is obnoxious. It's hard to interact with because it can't be targeted, and it's instant damage out of your hand, obnoxiously powerful. Finally, the last piece of the puzzle here, Galmu, Omen of Disdain. It evolves for 2, but during your turn, whenever this follower takes ability damage, change its evolve cost to 0 for the rest of the turn. So we can evolve this essentially for 1 a lot of the time, which is really, really good. So we can get it out earlier, and then we play a 3/2 line and 2 of the Evo here. And then on evolve, you select an Omen card that costs 2 play points or less in your cemetery and play it for 0 play points. So we're grabbing things like the big one here, Servant Disdain, huge card to be playing. Total Domination when we need to clear up the board. We can even be playing things like Disdainful Rendering if needed to do some extra removal. We just have a lot of good Omen cards to like pick from that all cost 2 or less to pull to the either board or play immediately to gain the effects that Galmu provides. And then during your turn, whenever this follower takes ability damage, select an enemy leader or enemy follower on the field and deal it 3 damage. So one of the huge things is that if you can present a PDK on the board and then play Galmu, force the Evo, bring back Servant of Disdain, you get to draw a card, trigger PDK, trigger Galmu, and just do a lot of damage everywhere. So if you need to clear up the board, you can do that. If you need to do more face damage, you can do that. This card is a lot of fun to play with, and it becomes a solid 6/6, though a lot of the times it's going to have less than 6 health, but it's still a very, very powerful card in general. That's the whole deck. It's pretty it's weird because it's almost aggro-y in a sense, but it's not really aggro-y. It's kind of, I guess it's more of I would say a mid-range-ish type of deck where we get some board control, and as we're controlling the board, we slowly kind of snowball the game out of control, sneak in there with some Dark Dragoon Forte swings, and the game is just yours. It's that simple. All right, well, that is the deck itself. Let me know what you guys are doing with the whole Disdain package, because it's been one of the most interesting and fun ways to play the dragon in general, because I've kind of got tired of just playing ramp dragon, which is what was my go-to, and discard dragon hasn't always been my thing, though I know Disdain gets some benefits from playing discard dragon, obviously, so I'll be taking a look at discard dragon again later on. But let me know what you guys are doing with Disdain. I'm really interested to see how this deck evolves during this meta and how it transfers into set 6. So let me know what you guys are doing. If you enjoyed this deck profile, though, make sure to like, comment, subscribe, and all that. And then hopefully we'll see you guys in the next video. Later, everyone.